Hello, I'm Ollie, and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, it being a Tuesday, I'm doing a tag, and the tag I'm doing is the Picture This tag. So this tag was created by Shelly Swearingen and Jack at Spreadbook Joy for the reading event that's been going on in April that's around picture books, which I have to say I haven't been taking part of. So I had my, I'm not going to say I had my fill of picture books because that would be untrue, but I've read an awful lot of picture books in the last 14 years or so, mostly mostly not in the last 14 years, in the years between the time my son, who is now 14, was 0 and about 8 or 9. So I used to read to him every night. So I have read many picture books, and many of them multiple times. So I don't currently have an appetite to read picture books, if I'm honest with you. But anyway, I thought I would do the tag anyway because it's the prompts are quite fun and interesting. I was tagged in this by Greg at Another Bibliophile Read, so thank you, Greg, who I think tagged me because he thought I was someone who probably wasn't into picture books. But he did suggest when he tagged me that maybe I had read a few, given the fact that I'm a dad, and I have indeed read many picture books. Okay, so on with prompts. So the first prompt is, and all these prompts are themed around well-known picture books. Although I have to say, I think only one or two of these are ones that I actually read to my son. I'll mention as we go through. I'll let you know the ones I've read. Yeah, it's only two of them. So first one then is Love You Forever, written by Robert Munsch and illustrated by Shelia McGraw. So name a book you imagine you'll love forever. So my pick for that, and I did talk about this on the channel very recently because I just got it in a book haul, is this book, The Delinquents by Criana Rowan, which I first read as a teenager. So this is I think it was written in the 50s, romance set in Australia between two teenagers, and it's just a really lovely book. It's a book that I guess is special to me, probably largely because it's so different from most of the books I read, but I have very fond memories of it. I'm looking forward to rereading it, but I think it's a book that will always have a special place in my heart. Question 2 is Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, Very Bad Day, written by Judith Viorst and illustrated by Ray Cruz. And I should say, I haven't read this one, and I haven't read I Love You Forever either. Which books or comforting things do you turn to when you are having a bad day? So I would say on this one, I turn to books when I'm having a bad day, but I don't necessarily turn to any particular books. So I will probably just turn to the book I am reading. So, reading for me is something, because it's such a focused activity and just, really takes your mind off things. Whatever book I am reading at the time is what, I may turn to if I'm having a bad day. Aside from, obviously people and having conversations with people about it and, speaking to my wife and that kind of thing. I think, just the act of sitting down quietly and reading for half an hour really calms my mind when I am troubled. Okay, question 3, The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle. So this is a book I read many times to my son. So which book series character sparked your hunger for reading? So as I've said in videos before, I've been reading for as long as I can remember. I think a series, one of the first series that I remember really getting into and really focusing on and reading and enjoying, all of the books in the series, is the Swallows and Amazons series by Arthur Edson, which, if you don't know them, are, I don't know when they were written. I guess they were probably written in the 50s, like The Delinquents, but about a family of I say a family of kids. There are parents around as well, but these I think there's 3 of them. These 3 kids who go on holiday I think it's in the Lake District, and go sailing. And get into all sorts of different adventures and meet other local kids and that kind of thing. And they're just really wonderful, lovely books about kind of adventurous childhoods, I guess you would say. So yeah, very much favourites of mine. Book 4, Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss. I don't think I read Green Eggs and Ham to my son. I did read The Cat in the Hat and at least one other Dr. Seuss, but I can't remember which one it was now. But I don't think we ever read Green Eggs and Ham, albeit I'm fairly sure I did have a copy of it when I was a kid. So what's the most unusual book you've ever read? So a few people who I've seen do this take recently have said, or have named House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. I have very recently read that, and it is a very weird book, and may be, in fact, the weirdest book I've ever read. But I wanted to name something else, as I've seen a few people mention that one. So I'm going to go with Naked Lunch by William Burrows, which is a very, very strange book, both in content and in style, in the way it's written. So it covers... It doesn't really have a plot. It covers all sorts of different ground. It's extremely graphic in places. It's very satirical. It's very weird. It mixes, kind of almost like political criticism with science fiction, with kind of thriller tropes and things like that, and then extreme sex and violence and drug taking and all sorts of different things. So a very, very strange book. Again, one that I read first when I was a teenager. I was amused to see. I was thinking I ought to reread it. And searched for it on Amazon and was amused to see that there's a very sort of gorgeous looking penguin cloth-bound edition of it now, which I might have to get actually. But that just seems... I really like that because it's so inappropriate for the book. The book is such a weird and nasty book that a pretty penguin cloth-bound edition seems completely inappropriate. And the other thing that's very strange about it, as I say, is the style. So one of the things that William Burrows did in his writing and does in The Naked Lunch is something called the cut-up technique, which is where you literally write a page of text, a page of the book, and then you take a pair of scissors to it and cut it up and rearrange it in a different order, and then that's what you publish. So there are parts that are very difficult to understand because he used that technique. Right, okay, moving on. Next prompt is Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. So I did read Where the Wild Things Are to my son, and we both very much enjoyed it. Also, so another connection I have to that book is my parents have a friend who I knew very well when I was growing up, who was a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a designer for children's books. So not an artist, but he did like cover design and interior design and things like that for children's books. And he met Maurice Sendak, which I think is pretty cool, given how famous a book Where the Wild Things Are. So what is your favourite book featuring the natural world? I'm not sure that I've necessarily got a favourite book that features the natural world. It seems to me like lots of books feature the natural world in some way or another. And I was racking my brains and I'd really struggled to think of a favourite. One that I read recently, which I thought was wonderful about the natural world, is The Moomins of the Great Flood by Tove Jansson. So where unlike many of the Moomins books, which are like proper picture books or like cartoons, or comic strips, this one is like a children's book, but with illustrations as well. So kind of typical middle grade type stuff, and it's just really lovely. So it's about the Moomins, who are this family of strange troll-like creatures, who I'm trying to remember exactly what happens. I think that the father of the family has gone out to do something, and there's a flood, and he goes missing, and then the rest of the family go out to try and find him, and it's it's your kind of classic fantasy quest in that they are walking through strange landscapes and meet various different bizarre creatures along the way, but Jansson's love of the kind of Scandinavian landscape shines through in it. It's really a really lovely book and very, very well written and very enjoyable. She also wrote a book called Summer Book, which is an adult novel, which is just about a young girl on an island with her grandmother, and that again has that kind of love of nature in it. So very, very enjoyable, both of those. Okay, next question. Goodnight Moon by Margaret Wise Brown, and I've missed out who illustrated it, so apologies. Again, I've not read this one. So, do you read at bedtime? Do you read to someone else at bedtime? Did anyone ever read to you at bedtime? So, yes, I do read at bedtime. So I read typically for 10 minutes, sometimes more, but at least 10 minutes before going to bed. Sometimes on my Kindle, sometimes physical book, but it's just a way for me of unwinding at the end of the day, and it just relaxes my mind before settling down for the night. I did, as I've said, so I did read to my son for many, many years, every night, and absolutely loved that experience. I thoroughly recommend it as an activity to do. There's something, I think, just about routine. Maybe it's just me, but I love routine, and that kind of routine of doing the same thing at roughly the same time every night, I think gives a natural rhythm to your life, and I adore that kind of thing. So yeah, I really loved reading to my son. Did anyone ever read to you at bedtime? I suspect they did, but I do not remember it at all. I suspect my parents did, but I really don't remember it. So yeah. Okay, next one is Guess How Much I Love You by Sam Mcbritney and illustrated by Anita Jerome. I have not read this one. Who had the biggest influence on you as a reader? So I think for this one, I'm going to go with my dad, who is a voracious reader, so always has a book on the go, but also introduced me to so many books that I love now and authors that I love. So he's a big reader of not exactly the same kind of books I read. So he is more into, so he's really into science fiction, and really into kind of adventure type books as well, I guess you'd say. So, classical thrillers. So he's introduced me to a number of books over the years that I've really enjoyed, and a number of authors, people like Clive Cussler, who I really like. Both my dad and my granddad read. So yeah, my dad definitely the biggest influence on me, and continues to be an influence on my reading. And then the final question is The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. Which book or set of books would you give to an emerging reader, or which book have you given as a gift more than once? I don't know is the answer to this. And I think other people have said this as well. So I can't think of a book that I've given more than once as a gift, because I tend to try, if I'm giving a book as a gift, and I think a book is quite a personal gift to give, so you have to know someone as a reader to give them a book. I think because I tend to try and pick the right book for the reader, that's meant that I haven't given books. I haven't given the same book ever, I don't think. And similarly, which book or set of books would you give to an emerging reader? Again, I'm not sure, because I think it's important to understand what that reader is into to give them something that they're going to enjoy, rather than something that ends up sitting on their shelves and taking up space and then potentially feeling guilty that they haven't read because it was a gift, as I have felt in the past with books that have been given to me. So yeah, I don't really have an answer for that one, I'm afraid. So that's all the questions gone through. So now time for me to tag some people, I guess. So I am going to tag, and I think these people haven't done this tag yet, but if you have, apologies. So I'm going to tag Gareth at Book Songs and Other Magic, who I know is into like cartooning and things like that, so I'm sure he'll have some good answers, or some good experience of reading picture books anyway. Eve at Horror and Inconvenience, and Crystal at Fibre Artsy. So that's the tag done. Hope you enjoyed that. As always, hope you found it interesting. Let me know if you've read any of the books I mentioned, either the kids' books or the books I talked about. But yeah, as always, hope you're safe and well. Hope you're reading good stuff, and I will speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.